Hi, good evening. I'm Shelby Williams, Plano City Council, Place 5, and I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Lily Bao from Plano City Council, Place 7. This is our first meeting of the new year, so Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
We're all here on time tonight. We started with a pretty full agenda, and we got through early. So that's going to set the stage for the new year. We're going to do great things. And on top of that, this meeting followed on the heels of the kickoff meeting for the ad hoc Citizens Committee for the Comprehensive Plan Review. So we've got a lot of good action happening. So tonight, we started out with a preliminary open meeting, and we had an introduction to the new ethics investigators. Now, about a year ago, when we come up with the ethics investigators, these are just people who are paid only at need, which is very rarely, and they conduct the investigations into any ethical concerns in the city. We expressed that we not only wanted people who had background in ethics investigations, but weren't tied to Plano. So in other words, they didn't have a dog in the fight. And so we met our two new ethics investigators. And then we had a couple of presentations from the library and Parks and Rec, which I'll turn it over to Lily to discuss.
Sure, yes. As you all know, Plano has a great library system. Most of us have utilized it one way or another, especially if you have kids. I've taken my kids to the library many times. Today, the library director, Libby, gave us a good presentation. You can find the presentation slides online from the link of the Plano City Council meeting agendas. One thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that right now, if you get onto the Plano Library website, or if you log in with your library card, actually now one of the new features they added is you can read a lot of newspapers. Specifically, you can read the Dallas Morning News online for free now. Very often, sometimes I get a link, a referral from people say, hey, look at this article from Dallas Morning News, and then you click, and then you get all this,
You're behind the paywall.
Yeah, you have to pay, you have to subscribe, right? So that's gone. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then another is the Park and Recreation Center. The Assistant Rec Center Director, Ron Smith, gave us a very good presentation. He will become the official Rec Center Director after the current one, Mr. Reeves, retire. One thing I'd also like to remind everybody is that, of course, we have received a lot of awards for our Park and Rec Center system, the whole system. We have 80 miles, trail, bike trail, everything. And just started last Friday, we have kicked off the It's Time Texas Community Service. We have a vacuum. It's Time Texas Community program, which is to encourage everybody to get active, to eat healthy, to exercise, so that Texas will be great with healthy Texans. And actually, me and the mayor, we were at the Carpenter Rec Center last Friday, had the kickoff. I think Liberty Recreation Center also had a kickoff on Saturday. This program is going to last until end of March. Please go on ITT community program, I think. Go check it. To register, when you register, you give 500 points to Plano. And we're trying to beat the other cities and become #1.
That's right. We are in a competition with McKinney and Richardson.
That's correct.
So don't let us down.
That's right. Okay.
Then we moved into our regular meeting. The first agenda item was recognition of Rob Johnson retiring from 22 glorious years as Sparky the Fire Dog.
Yeah.
Now, Rob donned the Sparky the Fire Dog suit and the dog head in Plano 4th of July parades, holiday parades in the winter, balloon festivals. And really served as the face of fire rescue as the mascot for 22 long years. So well done, Rob and Sparky. Next, CALEA, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, presented several awards. First was an award to Plano Public Safety Communications for Public Safety Communications Training Academy work, and an award to the Plano Police Department for advanced and meritorious accreditation. I think this was the 9th year running that this has been granted to the Plano PD. Former Chief outgoing chief, Greg Rushin, now Deputy City Manager Greg Rushin, was presented a certificate of appreciation and notably an Adon Vintner Award for service and commendation.
Yeah.
So
he's the Deputy City Manager now.
that's right. So much appreciation for Chief Rushin for so many years of service to the Plano PD, and he's not going anywhere. He is now, as Lily said, Deputy City Manager, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this ties in with the awards to the Plano PD. We had the distinct pleasure tonight of confirming our newest Chief of Police, Chief Ed Drain. Now, you have heard that he is the Police Chief of Amarillo and coming to Plano. However, that's a bit of a misnomer. Chief Drain spent 22 years in the Plano Police Department before we loaned him out to Amarillo just a few years ago,
Yeah.
and they liked him so much they decided to keep him. Well, with Chief Rushin retiring from the PD and moving on to the Deputy City Manager role, we asked Chief Drain to return to Plano. City Manager Israelson extended him an offer last week. He accepted. The council confirmed tonight, and so welcome home, Chief Drain.
I know, yeah, we are very excited and enthusiastic about him coming back to be our new police chief. He was the deputy chief under Chief Rushin, for 10 years, and out of the 10 years, 7 of them, he was the only deputy police chief. So he has a lot of experience, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And certificate of appreciation also went to Jessica Sayer by the Council for Accreditation. Then a certificate of appreciation was granted to Michael Purick for 6 years of service on the Collins Central Appraisal District Board. Then we moved on to the nuts and bolts of items for individual consideration. We did pull Chief Drain's confirmation from the consent agenda because that really is a big deal. We didn't want it to get lost in the consent agenda. So first we moved to a zoning consideration. It was a modification to a zoning ordinance to change the allowance for retail footprint and senior living spaces from 2 stories to 3. So it was a fairly minor modification, but that item passed 8-0. Not to spoil the punchline, but everything tonight passed 8-0. So that is going to be a senior living community on the northeast section of 14th and Los Rios.
Yeah.
Now, next we considered an SUP, which is a specific use permit for a fitness center off of Plano Parkway between Preston and the Tollway. Passed 8-0.
That's right.
Then we moved into consideration of the levy of a special assessment for the downtown Plano PID. PID stands for Public Improvement District. Now, the idea behind a PID is you levy a special assessment. In this case, it was 15 cents per every $100 of appraised value. And the money raised from that special assessment goes back into the PID district. It's a district, it's defined geographically. And that gets used for public improvements that benefit that district. So in that way, you're charging the downtown Plano residents for the amenities and features that are going to benefit downtown Plano residents, and you're not putting people in central Plano or near Oak Point Park on the hook for that. That's how PID works. So of course, that passed 8-0. That assessment was anticipated, I should say, to raise $188,000 for the couple of years that we're considering it, the 2020 year. And we then moved on to another PID, but first we hit the TIRZ, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. This is another geographically defined area. This was for the Cullen Creek development, but it wasn't just for the 99 acres of the Cullen Creek property. It also, that's right, it extended north and south of the property to encompass a broader area.
Yeah, so it actually covers the north to the 16th Street, south to the President George Bush Turnpike, and from Alma to 75.
That's right. Now, the way a TIRZ works is different from a PID. The principle is the same. The revenue, the tax revenue generated from it goes back into that zone to fund further improvements that are to the benefit of that zone. Now, for the Cullen Creek development, it was a 36-year TIRZ. which is pretty long.
Yeah.
However, and it's also a 75% increment. Now, the current value of the property is generating this amount of tax revenue. When all is said and done, that 75%, by the way, is on the increment, the additional tax revenue that will be brought in. So right now we've got a baseline for what the property is currently valued at and what it currently brings in tax revenue. After all is said and done, after several years and the entire area is fully developed, right, it'll be worth this much. Right. And it'll be bringing in commensurate tax revenue. So what the TERS does, it authorizes up to 75%, well, flat 75% of the incremental tax revenue in that area to be set aside in a special fund. And that'll even have its own board set up to monitor it and govern it. Now, the money that's set aside in that fund goes generally to anything that is of public benefit. There was an estimate in there of $80 million in project costs. Most of the items were for things like street repairs, sewage repair, right, things that you would expect municipal government to take care of. Right. One big line item that caught my attention was $55 million for economic development. So I asked about that. Now, $55 million is an estimate of what could be gained over the lifetime of the TERS. Now, I'm okay with that money going for legitimate public uses, like street repairs. If the economic development designation is for funding JCPenney spring lineup, that would be a mismanagement. That would be an abuse of that money. Yeah. However, if it is being used like a 380 grant, a 380 economic development grant, when those are brought before the council, we look at the economic equation. We say, okay, we're contemplating granting business X $80,000. Yeah. And in return, and we actually put stipulations on these, right, they have to bring in X number of jobs. Yeah, X number of jobs or tax revenue for the city of Plano. That's right. They're going to build improvements, right, or they're going to increase sales tax revenue. Right. So it's a net gain for the city. Yes. And the taxpayers of the city, because y'all are the ones paying all these taxes. So that's right, how that works. However, $55 million is a huge chunk of change. Yeah. So it's labeled economic development, and as was explained, that's basically the bucket where nothing else fit. Everything that was not anticipated for specific purposes, such as street repairs, sewage repairs, right, etc., mm-hmm, went into the economic development bucket. That money has to be used within the 36-year period of the TERS. Yes. And this is important. This is why, this is largely why I felt it was appropriate to approve. Every proposed use of that money that is raised in the TERS, that, yeah, 75% increment, has to come back before the council for approval. That's right. So if they're proposing to use that money or a portion thereof to fund something that truly is for public use and public benefit, then shouldn't have a problem passing it as long as it's a positive economic equation for the city and for you, the taxpayer. Yeah. If they do come back to us and propose to fund JCPenney spring lineup, then we've got an issue. Yeah, so we need to make sure future city council members know this and that's right, local elections matter.
That's right, hold the line.
That's right. Now, that passed 8-0, of course. And also, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Riccadelli pointed out that due to the size of the development and the scope, without the TERS, it was an economically upside down proposal, and the math didn't quite work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. I mean, the main reason we approve it is because this project, they do need this kind of help for it to move forward, quickly. And right, we were hoping they even to be able to finish ahead of their scheduled timeline. That would benefit everybody.
That's right. And we only undertake that when we anticipate, when we are assured of a net gain for the city and, yes, for you, the taxpayer.
That's right.
So I think they're giving last call.
Yes.
So we moved on to the Cullen Creek East PID, which, as we talked about with the downtown Plano PID, is a special levy, an additional levy on top of your regular property taxes, which goes to fund public improvements in that area. Yeah. And lastly, we had the second reading and the adoption of an ordinance to renew Encore Electric's franchise in Plano.
Right.
Maybe kind of anticlimactic, but that's how we ended the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. And that one is like we have to approve it. But anyway, hey, thank you, Chair Shelby, for doing this with him together.
My pleasure, Lily.
You know, for the 2020, and we wish everybody a very happy new year and a very prosperous and successful 2020 ahead of you.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.